The kitchen of Osteria dell'Angelo fell silent at exactly midnight, but Serafina Rossetti's work had only just begun. She stood alone in the walk-in cooler, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air, staring at the ornate wooden box her grandmother had left her with a single instruction: open it only when someone asks for the lost recipe. Tonight, someone had asked. The box contained what looked like an ordinary handwritten recipe card, yellowed with age, splattered with what might have been tomato sauce or something far more sinister. But Serafina knew better. Her grandmother, a woman who'd fled Naples in the dead of night clutching a 3-year-old granddaughter and secrets she took to her grave, had been many things. A liar. A thief. And the greatest poison master the Camorra had ever known. The recipe wasn't for food. It was a formula. 23 ingredients that, when combined in precise measurements and prepared at exact temperatures, created a compound indistinguishable from a massive heart attack. Undetectable. Untraceable. The holy grail of what her grandmother's journal had called La Mort Gentile, the gentle death. And 3 days ago, someone had walked into Serafina's restaurant and ordered it by name. She'd spent 5 years building her reputation as Florence's most innovative young chef, her fusion of Neapolitan tradition and molecular gastronomy earning her a Michelin star before she turned 26. 5 years of normal. 5 years of pretending her grandmother had been nothing more than a talented home cook who'd immigrated for a better life. Until a man in an expensive suit had sat at table 7, smiled at her with teeth too white to be real, and said in perfect Italian, "I hear your grandmother's risotto della memoria is to die for." Literally. Serafina had laughed it off. Claimed she'd never heard of such a dish. But the man had left a business card with nothing but a phone number and 7 words: "We know what's in the cooler." The sound of the kitchen's back door opening made her heart slam against her ribs. The restaurant was closed. The staff had left an hour ago. She'd locked every entrance herself. These footsteps were wrong, too many of them, too purposeful, converging from multiple directions. Serafina grabbed the recipe card and shoved it into her chef's jacket pocket, then moved swiftly toward the cooler door. She froze when a man's silhouette materialized in the doorway, blocking her exit. Then another shadow appeared behind him. And another. Trapped. Like a rabbit in a snare. "Chef Rossetti." The voice came from somewhere beyond the cooler, smooth as aged balsamic. "Working late, I see. Perfecting your craft." She stepped out of the cooler slowly, keeping her hands visible. The kitchen lights were dim, only the emergency lighting still on, casting long shadows across the stainless steel surfaces. The man who'd spoken stood by her prep station, running his finger along the marble countertop where she rolled her fresh pasta every morning. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her industrial oven, his salt and pepper hair swept back from a face carved from severity itself. But his eyes held something that made her grandmother's warnings echo in her memory: never trust a man who doesn't eat. He's already dead inside. "The restaurant is closed," Serafina said carefully, her Italian flawless, aristocratic, the accent of old money and older secrets. "I don't know who you are, but you need to leave." The man smiled. "I'm someone who's traveled very far to taste your grandmother's special recipe. The one she stole from my family before she fled to America." He gestured toward her pocket. "The one you're currently carrying." Not a question. A statement. Serafina's mind raced. This wasn't the man from table 7. This was someone else entirely. Someone who claimed ownership. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, the lie smooth on her tongue. "My grandmother was a simple cook." Nothing more. Your grandmother was Margherita Rossetti, master poison maker for the Grimani family. She stole our most valuable formula 23 years ago, the one that made our family untouchable. The one that let us eliminate problems without consequences. He took a step closer. And now you're going to give it back. The blood drained from Serafina's face. No one knew her grandmother's real name. She died as Margaret Ross, all traces of her Italian identity buried with her. Who are you? Serafina whispered. Lorenzo Grimani. And that recipe belongs to my family. He gestured to his men. Take her. And search her pockets. Serafina did something then that her grandmother had taught her in secret, late at night when her mother wasn't listening. Instead of running, instead of screaming, she turned to the nearest man, a mountain of muscle with ice-blue eyes and a scar running from temple to jaw, and spoke in rapid Neapolitan dialect, the street Italian of crime families. Chisto riquetta vale più e diasimila euro a mort. Si amiata scappa, ti insegno cum sefa. Putimo ffa na fortuna insieme, senza grimani. This recipe is worth more than 10,000 euros per death. If you help me escape, I'll teach you how to make it. We could make a fortune together, without Grimani. The words hung in the air like poison gas. The scarred man, Silvio Bianchi, though she didn't know his name yet, went absolutely still. His hand, which had been reaching for her arm, stopped mid-air. Then, impossibly, he smiled. It was not a kind smile. Interesting proposition, he murmured in the same dialect. Then, louder, in standard Italian, Lorenzo, we have a complication. Lorenzo Grimani's face transformed into something murderous. Silvio. Don't even think. She just offered me the recipe. In Neapolitan. How does an American chef speak the street Italian of Naples' crime families? She's lying. My formula, our territory, a new voice cut through the kitchen like a chef's knife through butter. Every head turned. The man who emerged from the dining room moved like a panther stalking prey. Younger than Lorenzo, perhaps mid-30s, he wore black on black, expensive, understated, deadly. His dark hair was swept back from a face that belonged on Roman coins, all sharp edges and dangerous beauty. When his storm-gray eyes landed on Serafina, they widened fractionally. Then his expression shuddered into something unreadable and utterly focused. She spoke the old words, he said softly, his gaze locked on Serafina's face. In Neapolitan. To one of our men. In a Grimani-protected establishment. Those eyes seemed to see straight through to her bones. Do you know what that means, Bellissima? Serafina's voice came out barely above a whisper. No. The dangerous man's lips curved into a smile that promised both salvation and damnation. It means you've just invoked ancient rights. Protection in exchange for loyalty. He stepped closer, and Serafina could smell expensive cologne and something darker, gunpowder, maybe, or blood. It means you belong to us now. What do you think is really in that recipe, poison, or something even more dangerous? Drop your theories in the comments below. The dangerous man's declaration hung in the air like the scent of burning rosemary, sharp, inescapable, and somehow sacred. Serafina's pulse hammered against her throat as she watched him circle her slowly, the way a sommelier might examine a rare vintage before deciding if it was worth the price. Dante, Lorenzo Grimani's voice cracked like a whip. This is family business. The girl has something that belongs to Uncle. The word was soft, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. When was the last time you actually read the old codes? The ones Nano made us memorize before he'd let us sit at the family table? Dante Grimani, because that's who he had to be, Serafina realized with growing dread, the nephew everyone whispered about, the one who'd turned the Grimani empire from local muscle into an international ghost, stopped directly in front of her. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and those storm-gray eyes that seemed to catalog every micro-expression on her face. Article 7, Dante continued, never breaking eye contact with Serafina. Any person who invokes protection in the old tongue, on Grimani ground, to a sworn member, is granted sanctuary under blood law. Their life becomes our responsibility. Their enemies become our enemies. He paused. Their secrets become our property. Serafina's grandmother had never mentioned that part. She's manipulating you, Lorenzo snarled. Playing on old superstitions. That girl probably learned a few phrases from some boyfriend and Mamada ti voles vida cussai, traditor. The words left Serafina's mouth before her brain could stop them. Your mother would be ashamed to see you like this, traitor. Pure Neapolitan. The kind her grandmother had whispered when she was angry, when the memories of her old life bled through the careful American facade. The kitchen went deadly silent. Silvio Bianchi actually laughed, a sharp, dangerous sound. She just called you a traitor. In dialect. With perfect secondigliano inflection. He looked at Dante with something like respect. Boss, she's either Camorra-trained or she's the most interesting liar I've ever met. Dante's eyes never left Serafina's face. Where did you learn to speak like that? My grandmother. The truth fell from her lips because lying felt suddenly, inexplicably dangerous. She raised me until I was 8. Taught me Neapolitan at night, when my mother was working. Made me memorize phrases, idioms, codes I didn't understand. Serafina's voice cracked. She died without telling me why. Margherita Rossetti. Dante said the name like a prayer and a curse. The ghost of Via Toledo. Best poison master in Naples until she vanished with the Grimani family's crown jewel, the formula that made us untouchable. He tilted his head. You have her eyes. That same gold-green color, like Amalfi lemons in August sun. How did he know what her grandmother looked like? She'd been gone for over 20 years. I was 5 when she left, Dante continued, his voice softening into something almost human. She used to sneak me bomboloni from the kitchen when Nano was teaching my father and Lorenzo about breaking fingers. She'd ruffle my hair and say, Ricordate, piccolo principi, Illinois velino più dolce e sempre quello che sembra amore. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Remember, little prince, the sweetest poison is always the one that looks like love. Serafina's breath caught. Her grandmother used to say the exact same thing. She had a daughter, Dante said. My father told me years later. A little girl she'd hidden from family life, kept clean from our world. When she stole the formula, she was protecting that daughter from what we would have made her become. His gaze intensified. That daughter was your mother. Which means you're not just some American chef who stumbled into our world, Bellissima. You're Grimani blood. Legacy. The granddaughter of the woman who taught me that poison and protection are two sides of the same coin. The room spun. That's impossible. My grandmother never. Your grandfather was my grandfather's brother, Dante said simply. Which makes us cousins. Distant, complicated, tangled in the kind of family history that gets people killed. He stepped closer, close enough that Serafina could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. And you just walked back into the family business carrying the one thing every crime syndicate in Europe would kill to possess. Lorenzo moved suddenly, his hand disappearing into his jacket. This is insane. Dante, you can't possibly believe. Silvio's gun was out before Lorenzo could finish the sentence, barrel trained on the older man's chest. Boss said she's under protection. That means you don't move. You don't breathe wrong. You definitely don't reach for weapons. Stand down, uncle, Dante said quietly. Before I let Silvio remind you what happens to family members who forget their place. Lorenzo's face purpled with rage, but his hand slowly emerged empty. You're making a mistake. That formula is worth 50 million euros. Governments would pay triple that. And you're going to just, what? Protect some girl because she speaks a little Italian and has the right eye color? Dante's smile could have frozen the Tyrrhenian Sea. I'm going to protect her because she invoked the old laws. Because she's family, whether she knew it or not. And because, he looked at Serafina, and something in his expression made her stomach flip. Anyone who can walk into a room full of killers and gamble everything on a language and a prayer is exactly the kind of dangerous we need. Serafina found her voice. I didn't gamble. I panicked. Even better. Dante's eyes gleamed. Panic reveals truth. And the truth is, you knew enough to speak the words that would save your life. Margherita trained you, even if you didn't realize it. He gestured to Silvio. Escort my uncle out. Make sure he understands that Serafina Rossetti is now under Grimani protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me personally. As Silvio moved to comply, Lorenzo's voice dropped to something venomous. You're going to regret this, nephew. That girl is a weapon without a safety. Just like her grandmother. Good, Dante said. I prefer my weapons dangerous. When the others had gone, only Dante and Serafina remained in the dim kitchen. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions and impossible revelations. I don't want to be part of this, Serafina whispered. I just want to cook. To create. To pretend you're not your grandmother's granddaughter? Dante's voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. Too late, Cugina. The moment you spoke those words, you stopped being invisible. Every family that wants that formula now knows you exist. Every enemy we have will come for you. Then let me give you the formula and disappear. Can't. Dante pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it to face her. Serafina's blood turned to ice. The photo showed her restaurant, Osteria dell'Angelo, from across the street. Taken tonight, before Lorenzo arrived. In the frame, barely visible in the window's reflection, were 3 figures with cameras. They've been watching you for days, Dante said softly. They know where you live. Where you shop. Where you run every Tuesday morning at dawn. He pocketed the phone. The only reason you're still alive is because they were waiting to see if you'd lead them to more than just the formula. To wonder if maybe Margherita left you other secrets too. Did she? The question escaped before Serafina could stop it. Dante's smile was sad. That's what we're going to find out. Together. He held out his hand. An invitation. A trap. A lifeline. Serafina stared at it, her grandmother's warnings echoing in her memory. Trust no one who speaks only one language. Dante Grimani spoke the language of violence, of power, of deadly beautiful things. But he also spoke Neapolitan. He remembered her grandmother's kindness. He'd just declared war on his own uncle to protect her. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and calloused and surprisingly gentle. "Welcome to the family, Serafina," Dante murmured. "Try not to poison anyone important on your first week." Do you think Dante is truly protecting Serafina, or does he have his own hidden agenda? Share your thoughts below. The safe house wasn't what Serafina expected. Instead of some dingy warehouse or fortress-like compound, Dante brought her to a Renaissance villa perched on the hills overlooking Florence, its terracotta roof glowing like embers in the pre-dawn light. Wisteria cascaded down stone walls that had witnessed 5 centuries of secrets, and through the iron gates, she could see gardens that would have made the Medicis weep with envy. "This is where you're hiding me?" Serafina asked as Silvio pulled the black Mercedes through the gates. "It's a little conspicuous." Dante, seated beside her in the back, didn't look up from his phone. The best place to hide a secret is in plain sight. This villa hosts charity galas, wine tastings, cooking classes for tourists. He finally met her eyes. "As of this morning, you're the new guest chef for our culinary program. Congratulations on your temporary career change. I have a restaurant. A Michelin star. A life. You have a target on your back and approximately 72 hours before every intelligence agency and crime family in Europe descends on Florence looking for you." His voice was matter-of-fact, almost bored. "Your restaurant is already under surveillance. Your apartment has been compromised. Your life, as you knew it, ended the moment you opened that cooler." The words should have terrified her. Instead, Serafina felt something else stirring beneath the fear, a strange, reckless curiosity. The same impulse that made her experiment with molecular gastronomy, that drove her to combine ingredients no sane chef would consider. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. Dante's expression shifted, something dangerous and hungry flickering behind those storm-gray eyes. "I want you to recreate your grandmother's formula. Perfect it. And then I want you to teach me how to make it. So you can kill people more efficiently? So I can protect people more efficiently." He leaned closer, and Serafina caught the scent of bergamot and something darker, gunpowder, or perhaps the metallic tang of old violence. "My family's empire is built on fear and respect." The formula ensured both. Without it, we've spent 20 years vulnerable, making messier choices, leaving evidence, creating enemies. His voice dropped. "Your grandmother understood that the most elegant solution to any problem is the one that looks like nature taking its course. She also understood that creating something like that comes with consequences," Serafina countered. "Why else would she have stolen it and run? Maybe she ran because she fell in love." The new voice came from the villa's entrance, where a woman stood silhouetted against the golden interior light. She descended the stone steps with the grace of a dancer, revealing herself in pieces, first the designer heels, then the cream silk pantsuit, finally a face that could have launched ships or ended dynasties. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant chignon, and her eyes, the same gold green as Serafina's, assessed everything with surgical precision. "Serafina Rossetti," the woman said, her Italian carrying the refined accent of Milanese elite. "You look exactly like the photographs Margherita used to show me. Before she disappeared with my brother's most valuable asset." Dante stood smoothly. "Serafina, meet Vittoria Grimani. My aunt, family consigliere, and the only person in our organization who might know the truth about your grandmother." Vittoria's smile was sharp as a paring knife. "I knew Margherita better than anyone. We were friends, before we became enemies." She circled Serafina slowly, studying her the way Serafina might examine a complex dish before attempting to deconstruct its secrets. "She never told you, did she? About your grandfather? About why she really left?" "She told me nothing," Serafina admitted. "Just taught me the language, made me memorize phrases, and died keeping her secrets." "Not all of them." Vittoria produced a slim folder from behind her back. "These arrived by courier 20 minutes ago. Addressed to you, care of the Grimani family. The sender used a code word only 3 people in the world know, one of whom has been dead for 15 years. Serafina's hands trembled as she took the folder. Inside were photographs, old and faded, showing a young woman who was unmistakably her grandmother. But she wasn't alone. In every photo, she stood beside a man whose face had been carefully, methodically scratched out with something sharp. Beneath the photos, a single recipe card in her grandmother's handwriting. "Cara Serafina, if you're reading this, then you've done what I prayed you'd never do. You've spoken the old words and brought yourself to their attention. I'm sorry, my darling. Sorry I trained you without telling you why. Sorry I left you weapons disguised as recipes and prayers. But most of all, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from the truth. Your grandfather wasn't just Grimani blood. He was Grimani betrayal. And the formula I stole? It wasn't just about poison. It was about erasing evidence of the man I loved and the reason I had to destroy him. The real secret isn't in the recipe I left you. It's in the one I encoded into your DNA. You're the formula, sweet girl. You always were. Trust the one with gray eyes and gentle hands. He's the only one who might save you from what I made you become." "Nana." The world tilted. Serafina looked up at Dante, whose gray eyes were indeed watching her with something that might have been gentleness, might have been calculation. "What does she mean?" Serafina's voice came out strangled. "I'm the formula?" Vittoria's expression transformed from professional courtesy to something that looked almost like pity. "Margarita wasn't just a poison master, dear. She was a geneticist. Before she fled Naples, she was working on something revolutionary, encoding chemical immunity into human DNA. Making someone who could handle the most toxic compounds without suffering effects. Someone who could taste poison and identify it by flavor alone." "That's impossible," Serafina whispered. "Is it?" Dante's voice was soft. "Have you ever gotten sick from spoiled food? Ever had an allergic reaction to anything? Ever wondered why you can taste compounds in dishes that other chefs can't detect?" Serafina's mind raced back through her life, the time she'd accidentally consumed raw deathcap mushrooms and felt nothing more than mild nausea. The way she could identify when a dish contained even trace amounts of chemicals others couldn't perceive. The reason her Michelin inspector had called her palate supernatural. "She experimented on me," Serafina breathed. "Her own granddaughter." "She made you into something extraordinary," Vittoria corrected. "And something extraordinarily dangerous. Because if you're carrying genetic immunity to poisons, that means your blood, your tissue samples, could be used to create an entire generation of assassins who can't be poisoned. Super soldiers who could survive chemical warfare. Politicians who could never be eliminated quietly." The folder slipped from Serafina's fingers, photographs scattering across the ancient stones like fallen leaves. "That's why everyone's looking for you," Dante said quietly. "Not just for a recipe. For you. For what's running through your veins right now." Serafina looked down at her hands, the hands that had created beauty from ingredients, that had earned her a Michelin star, that had mixed thousands of dishes without ever realizing she was tasting death and calling it dinner. I need to leave, she said suddenly. Get as far from all of you as possible. If I disappear, maybe. There's a kill order. Silvio's voice came from the doorway, his phone pressed to his ear. He looked grim. Just came through underground channels. 1 million euros for Serafina Rossetti, dead or alive. Preferably alive for tissue harvesting. He paused. It's signed by someone called the architect. That's impossible, Vittoria interrupted, her face draining of color. The architect has been dead for 20 years. Margherita killed him herself. I saw the body. Then someone's using his signature, Dante said. Or. The first bullet shattered the ancient glass of the villa's windows before anyone could finish the thought. Dante's body slammed into Serafina's, driving her to the ground as automatic gunfire tore through the dawn air. She tasted blood, his or hers, she couldn't tell, and felt the brutal efficiency of his movements as he shielded her with his own body. Silvio! Dante roared. Get her to the wine cellar. Now. But Silvio was already moving, his gun drawn, returning fire at shapes materializing through the wisteria-draped walls. Shapes wearing tactical gear and moving with military precision. Vittoria's heels clicked on stone as she calmly drew a pistol from somewhere in her silk pantsuit. Well, she said conversationally, shooting a man between the eyes as he crested the garden wall. I suppose this answers whether the architect is really dead. Dante hauled Serafina to her feet, his gray eyes wild with something between fury and fear. Listen to me very carefully. Whatever happens in the next 5 minutes, you survive. You run. You hide. You do whatever it takes. I don't know how to. He kissed her. Hard and desperate and tasting of violence and wine and promises neither of them should be making. When he pulled back, his thumb traced her jawline once, gentle despite the chaos. Your grandmother trained you for this, he whispered against her lips. You just didn't know what the lessons meant. Now run, Bellissima. And don't look back. A massive explosion rocked the villa's eastern wing. Stone rained from the sky like deadly hail. Through the smoke and fire, Serafina saw them, at least a dozen armed men pouring through the breached walls, weapons trained, movements synchronized. And leading them, emerging from the smoke like a ghost from her grandmother's nightmares, was a man whose face Serafina recognized from the scratched-out photographs. The man her grandmother had supposedly killed 20 years ago. The man who, impossibly, was looking directly at Serafina with eyes that held both recognition and terrible, terrible hunger. The wine cellar beneath the villa was a labyrinth of stone corridors and ancient oak barrels that smelled of earth and centuries-old secrets. Serafina's lungs burned as Silvio dragged her through the darkness, his grip on her wrist unbreakable, his breathing controlled despite the chaos erupting above them. There's a tunnel, he said, his voice low and urgent. Built during the Renaissance for exactly this kind of situation. Exits 2 kilometers away in the old monastery ruins. We can't just leave them. Dante's orders. Silvio pulled her around a corner, then stopped abruptly, pressing her against the cold stone wall. His body shielded hers as footsteps echoed somewhere in the darkness behind them. And I don't disobey Dante. Ever. The way he said it made Serafina wonder exactly what happened to people who did. Above them, the muffled sounds of gunfire continued. Each shot felt like a fist squeezing her heart. Dante was up there. Vittoria. People dying to protect a secret her grandmother had written into Serafina's very cells without asking permission, without explaining the price. Why? Serafina whispered. Why would he risk everything for someone he just met? Silvio's ice blue eyes found hers in the dim light filtering through ceiling grates. You really don't know, do you? What you are to him? I'm a cousin. Distant. Family he's obligated to. You're the reason he came back to Florence. Silvio's voice was matter-of-fact, which somehow made the words more devastating. 3 months ago, we intercepted chatter about someone searching for Margherita Rossetti's descendants. Dante spent weeks tracking every lead, every whisper. When he found you. Silvio paused. I've known him for 15 years. Watched him order executions over breakfast and negotiate billion-euro deals without blinking. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at your photograph. Before Serafina could process that, Silvio's entire body went tense. Someone's in the tunnel ahead of us. Stay behind me. He moved like liquid shadow, gun raised, navigating the darkness with practiced ease. Serafina followed, her heart hammering so loud she was certain whoever waited ahead could hear it. The figure materialized from the gloom slowly, a woman, hands raised, wearing the remains of what had once been an elegant dress now torn and stained with something dark. Don't shoot, the woman said in accented Italian. Please. I'm not with them. Silvio's gun didn't waver. Who are you? Dr. Ilara Kozlov. Biochemist. I worked with Margherita Rossetti 23 years ago. Her voice cracked. I'm the one who helped her encode the immunity into Serafina's DNA. The world tilted again. Serafina stepped around Silvio, ignoring his protest. You knew my grandmother? You helped her experiment on me? I helped her save you. Ilara's eyes, gray like storm clouds, nothing like Dante's softer steel, were haunted. Your grandfather was the architect. Did they tell you that part? Margherita's great love was the man who pioneered genetic warfare, who believed he could create an army of unkillable soldiers. When she realized what he was planning, what he wanted to do to their daughter, your mother, she made a choice. What choice? Serafina's voice came out strangled. She let him experiment on you instead. Ilara's words fell like stones into dark water. But she sabotaged the process. Made you immune to his poisons, yes, but also immune to his control. The genetic markers he needed to replicate the process? She scrambled them, made them unreadable. You're a masterpiece and a dead end, all at once. That's why everyone wants me. Understanding crashed through Serafina like a wave. They think they can still extract the data. Reverse engineer what she did. They can't, Ilara said. But they'll kill you trying. Unless, she reached into her jacket slowly, producing a small vial of amber liquid. This is the original serum. The one Margherita created before she corrupted it. One dose could theoretically unlock the genetic code in your blood, make it readable again. Silvio's gun pressed against Ilara's temple. And why would you bring that here? Because the architect has my daughter. Ilara's voice broke. He took her 6 months ago. Said he'd trade her life for Serafina's cooperation. For her blood. For the ability to create an army of children who can never be poisoned, never be eliminated, never be stopped. Tears tracked through the dirt on her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But she's 9 years old, and she's all I have left. The explosion that rocked the cellar sent all 3 of them crashing to the ground. Stone dust rained from the ceiling, and somewhere close, something groaned, the sound of centuries-old architecture deciding whether to hold or collapse. Through the settling dust, footsteps approached. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Well, well. The voice was smooth as poisoned honey. Dr. Kozlov. Right on schedule. The man who emerged from the smoke was tall, silver-haired, with features that would have been handsome if not for the absolute absence of humanity in his eyes. He looked at Serafina the way a scientist might examine a particularly fascinating specimen. "Hello, granddaughter," the architect said. "You have your grandmother's eyes. I've waited 23 years to see them again." Serafina's blood turned to ice. "You're dead. She killed you. Margarita killed a body double. A necessary deception that bought me decades to perfect my work in peace." He smiled, and it was the most terrible thing Serafina had ever seen. "Did you know she came to me 3 months before she fled? Begged me to stop the experiments. Said she'd do anything if I'd just let our family go." His smile widened. "So I gave her a choice. I could continue my work on our daughter, who was already showing complications from the early trials. Or she could offer up something even more valuable." "No," Serafina whispered. "You were 3 years old. Perfect age for genetic modification. Young enough that the changes would integrate completely." The architect took a step closer. "She agreed, on one condition, that she'd be the one to administer the treatments. I was so pleased with her cooperation, I never suspected she'd betray me." Silvio fired. The bullet should have gone straight through the architect's skull. Instead, it struck some kind of invisible barrier inches from his head and fell harmlessly to the ground. The architect laughed. "Did you think I'd spend 20 years hiding without improving myself? I am the formula now, child. Immune to bullets, poison, age itself." He looked at Serafina with something like pride. "And you're going to help me perfect it?" "Willingly. Because if you don't—" Soldiers dragged someone forward, a young girl, perhaps 9 or 10, with Alara's eyes and terror written across her face. "Mama," the girl screamed. "No." Alara lunged forward, but 2 soldiers held her back. The architect pulled out a syringe filled with black liquid. "This is a new compound I've been developing. It causes every nerve ending to fire simultaneously for approximately 48 hours before the subject's heart gives out. Quite excruciating, I'm told." He pressed the needle against the girl's neck. "You have 30 seconds to decide, Serafina. Your blood and cooperation, or this child's unspeakable agony." "Don't," Silvio growled. "Dante will. Dante is currently bleeding out in what's left of the villa gardens." The architect's voice was conversational. "Vittoria lasted slightly longer, I'm told. Very impressive for a woman in heels." The words hit Serafina like physical blows. Dante. Bleeding out. Because of her. Because her grandmother had made her into a weapon everyone wanted to possess. She looked at the terrified little girl. At Alara's broken expression. At Silvio, calculating odds they both knew were impossible. Serafina thought of her grandmother's final message: "Trust the one with gray eyes and gentle hands." Dante had gray eyes. But this monster, her grandfather, had eyes like winter death. Who had her grandmother really meant? 20 seconds, the architect said pleasantly. Serafina's hand found the vial Alara had dropped, the original serum that could unlock everything. Make her readable. Make her vulnerable. Make her into exactly what this monster wanted. Or make her into something he could never predict. 10 seconds. Serafina made her choice. She uncapped the vial and drank every drop. The architect's smile vanished. "No. You foolish girl, that needed to be administered and controlled. Serafina's entire body seized as fire replaced her blood. She felt her DNA unraveling and rewriting itself, felt doors opening in her genetics that her grandmother had locked shut. And through the pain, through the transformation, she tasted something in the wine cellar air that no one else could detect. Bitter almonds. Cyanide. Old and faint, but present in the water system. Her grandmother's final gift, laid decades ago. One she'd need Dante's people to activate. If they were still alive. If Silvio could reach them in time. If this gamble didn't kill her first. Serafina collapsed, and the last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the architect's face, torn between fury and fascination. "Well," he said softly. "This just became interesting." Serafina woke to the taste of copper and starlight. At least, that's what her rewired brain told her, that blood had a metallic constellation pattern, that pain had a flavor profile somewhere between burnt caramel and shattered glass. The serum hadn't killed her. It had done something far worse. It had made her grandmother's vision complete. She was lying on a steel surgical table in what looked like a converted monastery chapel, religious frescoes peeling from walls now lined with state-of-the-art medical equipment. The architect stood over her, taking notes on a tablet, his expression equal parts scientific fascination and grandfatherly pride. "Remarkable," he murmured. "Your vitals stabilized in under 4 minutes. Margarita's original formula would have taken hours." He looked at her with those dead eyes. "You really are extraordinary." Serafina tried to move and found her wrists and ankles secured with restraints that felt organic somehow, as if they were made from something living. "Where's the girl?" "Ilara's daughter?" "Alive. For now. Leverage is only useful if kept functional." He set down the tablet. "I'm not a monster, Serafina. I'm a visionary. Everything I've done, the experiments, the sacrifices, it's all been in service of human evolution. You tortured children." Her voice came out steady despite the fire still coursing through her veins. "I gave them potential." The architect leaned closer, and Serafina could smell formaldehyde and something sweeter, decay masked by expensive cologne. "Your mother could have been the first of a new species. Instead, Margarita's sentimentality made her imperfect. She died screaming in a hospital bed from genetic complications when you were 8. Did you know that? Did your grandmother ever tell you that her protection killed your mother?" The words hit like a blade between the ribs. "You're lying. I have medical records. Autopsy reports. Your grandmother saved you by sacrificing your mother. Every improvement she made to your genetics, she tested first on her own daughter." His smile was gentle, devastating. "She was a monster too, Serafina. She just had better publicity." Before Serafina could respond, the chapel doors burst open. Silvio stumbled through, his shirt soaked with blood, his own and probably others, dragging someone behind him. "Dante." Serafina's breath stopped. The Mafia Don looked like he'd been through a war zone, which she supposed he had. His expensive suit was shredded, blood matted his dark hair, and a gunshot wound in his shoulder still seeped crimson. But his gray eyes were alert, furious, and locked on Serafina with an intensity that made her chest ache. "Let her go." Dante's voice was gravel and broken glass. The architect barely glanced at them. The Grimani boy. I wondered when you'd arrive." "Silvio, I assume you brought him as instructed?" Serafina's blood turned to ice. "What?" Silvio's expression was blank, professional. "Package delivered, sir." Though he proved, more difficult than anticipated. "You bastard," Dante snarled, trying to lunge forward. Silvio's gun pressed against his temple, stopping him cold. "I'm sorry, boss," Silvio said quietly. "But my sister has been in the architect's custody for 2 years. He promised if I delivered you and the girl, he'd let her go." "Everyone's motivated by love," the architect observed. "It's humanity's greatest weakness and my most reliable tool." He gestured, and 2 soldiers hauled Dante onto a second surgical table adjacent to Serafina's. "Did you know, Mr. Grimani, that your grandfather and I were colleagues once? Before Margarita seduced him into betraying our work?" Dante's eyes widened fractionally. "That's impossible. My grandfather died of natural causes. Margarita's poison, administered over 3 years. So slow, so gentle, it looked like age taking its natural course." The architect prepared a syringe with practiced efficiency. "She murdered the only man who ever understood my vision. Stole my research. Fled with my greatest creation." He looked at Serafina. "And now, 23 years later, I have everything I need to complete my masterpiece." "What are you doing?" Serafina struggled against her restraints, but they only tightened, seeming to pulse against her skin. "Creating a bond that will ensure your cooperation." The architect injected something into Dante's foreline. "This is a modified version of your genetic code, Serafina. It will rewrite portions of Mr. Grimani's DNA to match yours, specifically, the portions that make you immune to poison." "No," Serafina breathed. "But there's a catch." The architect's smile was triumphant. "The process is incomplete without a continuous exchange of genetic material between matched pairs. In layman's terms, your body will now produce antibodies that his requires to survive. If you're separated for more than 72 hours, his enhanced immune system will attack itself. He'll die in agony, his own cells becoming the poison." Dante's body convulsed on the table, muscles seizing as the serum took effect. Serafina watched in horror as his veins darkened, the compound spreading through him like ink in water. "You've made him dependent on me," Serafina whispered. "Why?" "Because love makes people predictable. And you, dear granddaughter, are already halfway in love with him." The architect gestured to a monitor showing Serafina's vital signs. "Your heart rate increases when he speaks. Your pupils dilate when he enters a room. Margarita taught you many things, but she never taught you to hide what you feel." "I barely know him." "You know enough." The architect leaned close, his breath cold against her ear. "And now you'll do anything I ask to keep him alive." Perfect leverage. Perfect control. Dante's convulsions stopped. His eyes opened, now carrying flecks of gold green that matched Serafina's exactly. When he looked at her, she felt it, a pull, a connection that sang through her rewired genetics like a tuning fork finding its frequency. "What did you do to me?" Dante's voice was hoarse. "I made you matched." The architect released Serafina's restraints. "You're bonded now. 2 halves of an evolutionary leap forward. Together, you're unstoppable. Apart, you're doomed." He stepped back, satisfied. "And now that we've established the parameters, let's discuss terms." Serafina sat up slowly, her body still adjusting to the serum's changes. Every sense was heightened. She could hear Silvio's heartbeat, smell the guilt radiating from him, taste the desperation in the air like burnt sugar. And she could feel Dante. Not just his presence, but his pain, his fury, his absolute determination to kill the architect even if it cost him everything. The connection terrified her. "What do you want?" Serafina asked. Simple. You'll work with me to perfect the formula. Make it stable, reproducible, controllable. In exchange, I'll keep Mr. Grimmoney alive, release Dr. Kozlov's daughter, and even let Silvio's sister go free. The architect's smile widened. And when we're done, I'll release you both. You can return to your restaurant, your normal life. All I want is the ability to create others like you. An army of the unkillable. Is that so terrible? You're insane, Dante growled. I'm inevitable. The architect turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Serafina? Your grandmother left you one more gift. It's encoded in your genetic memory now, every formula she ever created, every poison, every antidote. You just need to learn how to access it. He smiled. She turned you into a living library of death. The question is, will you be a weapon for good, or for me? The chapel doors closed behind him, leaving Serafina and Dante alone except for Silvio, who stood guard with a gun and an expression that might have been remorse. Dante managed to sit up, his new gold-green eyes finding Serafina's. We're getting out of here. He's made you dependent on me. If we run, then we run together. Dante's hand found hers, and the moment their skin touched, Serafina felt it, a surge of energy, of recognition, of something her grandmother had encoded into her very cells without asking. She'd been designed for this. For him. Or someone like him. My grandmother knew, Serafina whispered. She knew I'd meet you. That's why she wrote, "Trust the one with gray eyes and gentle hands." She was telling me that we were always meant to be weapons together. Dante's voice was soft, devastating. The question is whether we'll be his weapons, or our own. Through the chapel walls, Serafina could hear machinery starting up. Could taste chemicals in the air that her enhanced senses now identified automatically: chloroform, synthetic adrenaline, something that smelled like burnt roses and tasted like screaming. The architect was preparing something. Something that would make everything so far look like a practice run. And Serafina realized with growing horror that part of her, the part her grandmother had engineered, wanted to know what it was. Wanted to help create it. Wanted to see just how far human evolution could be pushed before it broke. If you were bonded to someone like Dante, would you trust the connection or fight against it? Let us know in the comments. The laboratory the architect forced Serafina to work in was a perversion of everything she loved about cooking. Sterile white surfaces instead of warm wood. Chemical compounds instead of fresh herbs. The goal wasn't to create life and flavor, but to engineer death with precision. 3 days had passed since the bonding. 3 days of the architect standing over her shoulder, noting every formula she accessed from her genetic memory, every compound she reluctantly synthesized. 3 days of feeling Dante's presence through their connection, his pain when the architect's guards beat him for asking too many questions, his fury when Serafina was forced to work 16-hour shifts, his helplessness as they were kept separated except for the brief moments needed to maintain their genetic bond. The connection was both torture and salvation. She could feel him in the next room, sense his heartbeat synchronizing with hers, taste his desperation like ash on her tongue. You're stalling, the architect observed, reviewing her latest batch of failed compounds. These formulas are deliberately corrupted. Do you think I don't notice? Serafina didn't look up from her work. The genetic memory is unstable. My grandmother encoded these formulas under extreme stress. Sometimes they're incomplete, sometimes contradictory. Then access the deeper memories. The ones from before you were born. He leaned closer. Genetic memory doesn't just store your grandmother's knowledge, Serafina. It stores everything in your ancestral line. Centuries of Rossetti women who knew the secrets of poison and preservation. You just need to stop being afraid of what you'll find. The truth was, Serafina had already accessed those memories. And what she'd found terrified her. Generations of women who'd killed with kindness. Who'd protected their families by eliminating threats before they could materialize. Who'd understood that love and murder were sometimes the same gesture, differently timed. Her grandmother had been the gentlest of them all. The door burst open, and Silvio dragged Dante inside. The Mafia Don's face was bruised, his lips split, but his gold-green eyes burned with undiminished fire when they found Serafina's. "Time for your dose," the architect said cheerfully, as if discussing vitamins rather than the genetic exchange that kept Dante alive. Serafina moved to Dante quickly, her hands finding his face, checking the damage. Through their bond, she felt his pain spike as her fingers pressed too hard on a bruise, then ebb as her touch soothed something deeper than physical injury. "I'm fine," Dante murmured, his voice rough. "Don't give him what he wants. He'll kill you. I'm already dead if we help him create an army." Dante's hand covered hers, their shared genetic markers humming with recognition. "Better one death than millions." The architect sighed. "How tediously noble. Silvio, bring in Dr. Kozlov's daughter. Perhaps a demonstration will clarify our priorities." "No," Serafina said quickly. "I'll cooperate. Just leave the girl alone." "Too late for that, I'm afraid." The architect gestured, and soldiers dragged in a small figure, the 9-year-old girl, Elena, who'd been crying so long her eyes were swollen nearly shut. Behind her, Ilara Kozlov stumbled forward, her face a mask of maternal anguish. "Please," Ilara begged. "I did everything you asked. I brought them here. I gave you the serum. Please let her go." The architect regarded her with clinical detachment. "You're right. I did promise." He pulled out a syringe filled with clear liquid. "This is your freedom, Dr. Kozlov. A compound that will sever all genetic modifications I've made to your daughter over the past 6 months. She'll return to being perfectly normal. Human. Breakable." "What did you do to her?" Ilara's voice cracked. "Enhanced her pain receptors by 300%. Made her neurologically incapable of lying. Turned her into the perfect test subject for interrogation techniques." He smiled. "But you wanted her back to normal, so normal she shall be. The reversal process, unfortunately, is quite excruciating. She'll feel every genetic change unwinding itself. It typically takes 4 to 6 hours of active consciousness. Most children don't survive the psychological trauma." Ilara lunged for him, but guards held her back. "You monster. You promised." "I promised freedom. I never specified the condition she'd be in." The architect turned to Serafina. "Unless you'd like to create an antidote? Something that could reverse the process painlessly? I'm sure it's somewhere in that genetic memory of yours." Serafina's hands trembled. She could feel the formula crystallizing in her mind, her grandmother's voice whispering instructions, measurements, molecular structures that would indeed ease the child's suffering. But creating it would prove she could access the deeper memories. Would give the architect confirmation that she was capable of producing exactly what he wanted. "Clock's ticking," the architect said, injecting the clear serum into Elena's fore. "In 30 seconds, that poor child will experience agony beyond your comprehension. In 4 hours, she'll likely be catatonic. Unless you save her. Elena's small body went rigid. A sound escaped her throat, not quite a scream, more like all the air being forced from her lungs at once. Stop. Ilara sobbed. Please, she's just a baby. Dante's hand found Serafina's, his grip iron. Through their bond, she felt his message clearly. Don't. Whatever he wants, it's not worth one child's life multiplied by millions. But Elena was screaming now, her back arching off the table, and Serafina could hear her grandmother's voice in her genetic memory. The sweetest poison is always the one that looks like love. And sometimes, mercy is the cruelest poison of all. Serafina moved to the laboratory equipment. Serafina, no, Dante tried to grab her, but Silvio's gun convinced him otherwise. Her hands worked automatically, accessing knowledge that felt simultaneously foreign and intrinsic. Compounds mixed in precise ratios. Temperature calibrated to the degree. The antidote took shape in minutes, her enhanced mind processing calculations that would take normal scientists years. She injected Elena with trembling hands. The child's screaming stopped. Her body relaxed. Within moments, she was breathing normally, the genetic reversal proceeding painlessly into unconsciousness. The architect's smile was radiant. Magnificent. You can access everything. Create anything. He gestured to his guards. Take Dr. Kozlov and her daughter to recovery. They've served their purpose. You said you'd free them, Serafina protested. I said they'd be free of pain. And they are. They'll live quite comfortably in my guest quarters until I no longer need insurance policies. He turned to Serafina. But you've just proven you're capable of the impossible. So let's discuss your next project. He pulled up schematics on his tablet, genetic modifications that would create humans immune not just to poison, but to radiation, extreme temperatures, even certain types of physical trauma. Super soldiers, Dante spat. You want to create an unkillable army. I want to create the future. One where humans can survive anything. Adapt to any environment. Become truly immortal. The architect's eyes gleamed with zealot fervor. And Serafina is going to make it possible. Because if she refuses... He looked at Dante with casual cruelty. The bond one created between you can be reversed. Quite painfully. Mr. Grimani's enhanced immune system would attack every cell in his body simultaneously. Death would take approximately 48 hours and involve more suffering than Elena just experienced. Exponentially more. Dante's face paled, but his voice was steady. Do it. I'm not worth what he's asking. You're wrong. Serafina's voice came out broken. You're worth everything. The architect smiled like a cat with cream. How touching. And how predictable. He walked to the door, then paused. You have 24 hours to produce the first batch of enhancement serum, Serafina. Or I'll start the reversal process on Mr. Grimani. And I'll make sure you feel every second of his death through your bond. When he left, only Silvio remained as guard. His expression was carefully neutral, but Serafina could see the conflict in his ice-blue eyes. Your sister, Serafina said quietly. Is she even alive? Silvio's jaw tightened. I don't know. I haven't seen her in 6 months. He shows me videos, but... He looked away. I stopped being sure they were real after the 3rd month. Dante laughed bitterly. We're all his puppets. Dancing on strings made of the people we love. Serafina felt the truth of it settling into her bones. The architect had engineered the perfect trap, One built not from walls and locks, but from love and loyalty and the terrible mathematics of whose life mattered more. And the worst part was the small, dark voice in her head, the part that came from her grandmother's genetic legacy, that whispered she could end all of this. She could create what the architect wanted. Perfect it. Then use that same knowledge to engineer his destruction from the inside. Become the poison that looked like love. Become exactly what her grandmother had died trying to prevent. The moment came at 3 a.m, when even monsters needed to sleep. Serafina sat alone in the laboratory, ostensibly working on the enhancement serum the architect demanded. In reality, she was accessing a different kind of genetic memory, not formulas or compounds, but something her grandmother had buried deeper. A message. Written in the language of DNA itself. Piccola, her grandmother's voice whispered through ancestral memory, if you're hearing this, then you've learned what I made you. What I had to make you. And you're wondering if I was wrong to turn you into a weapon without asking. Serafina's hands stilled over the equipment. I wasn't wrong. I was terrified. The architect was my husband, and I loved him once, before ambition rotted his soul. He wanted to play God with our family. First our daughter, your mother. Then you. I let him believe I was helping, that I shared his vision. But every treatment I gave you, I corrupted. Every enhancement, I sabotaged with something he could never detect. The genetic memory shifted, showing Serafina something impossible, a secondary code hidden beneath the primary modifications. A failsafe. You're not just immune to poison, my darling. You're a reverse catalyst. Any genetic enhancement that comes within proximity of your blood for extended periods begins to destabilize. Slowly. Imperceptibly. Until it fails catastrophically. Serafina's breath caught. The bond with Dante. The daily exchanges of genetic material. If what her grandmother encoded was true, then she wasn't making Dante stronger. She was making him a time bomb aimed directly at the architect's heart. The man who bonded you to will carry your destabilizing code in his system. 3 weeks of proximity is all it takes. Then, anyone the architect has enhanced, including himself, will begin to degrade when exposed to Dante's blood, breath, even his presence. You're not a weapon, Piccola. You're an antidote. And Dante is the delivery system. The laboratory door opened silently. Serafina spun, expecting guards, but found Silvio instead. He moved like a ghost, finger to his lips, ice-blue eyes alert. We have 5 minutes before the next patrol, he whispered. Less if the architect has cameras I don't know about. You're helping us? Serafina kept her voice equally low. My sister is dead. The words were flat, factual. I saw the body 2 hours ago when I broke into the architect's private quarters. She's been dead for 18 months. He's been showing me videos of a girl who looks like her, sounds like her, but has all the wrong scars. Silvio's expression was carved from ice and fury. I've been his puppet for 2 years. For a ghost. For nothing. Dante emerged from the shadows behind him, moving despite his injuries with the lethal grace of a predator. His gold-green eyes found Serafina's immediately, and through their bond, she felt his determination like a living flame. Silvio knows a way out, Dante said. Through the old monastery crypts. But we need to move now, before. No. Serafina stood, her mind racing. We can't just run. The architect has genetic samples from both of us. He could recreate the enhancements, find other people to experiment on. We need to end this. How? Silvio's voice was skeptical. He's enhanced himself beyond anything human. Bullets don't work. Poison doesn't work. He's made himself into exactly what he wanted, unkillable. Not unkillable. Serafina pulled up the genetic code she'd just accessed, her grandmother's final gift. Vulnerable. My grandmother built a failsafe into my genetics. I destabilize enhancements. And through our bond, Dante carries that same destabilizing code now. Dante looked at his hands, at the gold-green flecks in his veins that matched Serafina's. You're saying I'm poisonous to the architect? In about 14 more days, yes. Your proximity will cause his enhancements to cascade failure. His immunity will turn on itself. He'll die from the very thing he thought made him immortal. 14 days. Silvio shook his head. We don't have 14 days. He's moving the operation tomorrow night. Taking you, Dante, and all his research to a facility in the Ural Mountains. Once you're there, no one's finding you. Ever. Serafina's mind worked through possibilities, discarding options as quickly as they formed. Then it hit her, the answer hidden in plain sight, encoded in the same genetic memory that held her grandmother's message. We don't need 14 days, she said slowly. We just need to accelerate the process. Concentrate the destabilizing effect. How? Dante moved closer, and Serafina felt their bond pulse with shared purpose. The genetic exchange that keeps you alive, it's been passive. Small doses, daily contact. But if we did a massive transfusion, flooded your system with my blood. She pulled up calculations on the laboratory screen. The destabilizing effect would compound exponentially. In theory, you'd become catastrophically toxic to any enhanced individual within hours instead of weeks. In theory, Silvio repeated. What's the reality? The reality is that much genetic material exchange at once might kill Dante. His system might not be able to integrate it. Or it might work perfectly, and he becomes a walking weapon that neutralizes every enhancement the architect has created. Serafina looked at Dante, letting him see the fear and hope warring in her expression. Including potentially his own enhancements. You could lose everything he gave you. Or you could die. I don't know which is more likely. Dante's smile was sharp as broken glass. So I either become the bullet that kills him, or I die trying. Those are better odds than I've had in days. He took her hands, and their shared genetics sang with recognition. Do it. Dante. Your grandmother made you into an antidote, Bellissima. Let me be the syringe that delivers it. His eyes were steady, certain. This is what we were designed for. Not to be his weapons. To be his destruction. Silvio checked his watch. 3 minutes until patrol. If we're doing this, we need to start now. Serafina's hands trembled as she prepared the equipment for transfusion. This wasn't cooking, wasn't the careful balance of flavors and textures she'd spent her life perfecting. This was alchemy of the most dangerous kind, turning love into a weapon, protection into poison, salvation into potential suicide. If this kills you, Serafina whispered as she inserted the 4-line into Dante's arm, I'll never forgive my grandmother for making this choice for us. If this kills me, Dante countered, his voice soft, I'll die knowing I chose to be the antidote instead of the poison. That's more than most people get. The transfusion began. Serafina's blood flowed into Dante's veins, carrying with it the genetic destabilization her grandmother had encoded decades ago. Through their bond, she felt his body reacting, cells recognizing and integrating, DNA rewriting itself in real time, his enhanced immune system struggling to accommodate the cascade of changes. Dante's face went pale. Then gray. His body began to seize. "It's too much," Silvio said urgently. "Serafina, stop the transfusion." "No." Dante forced the word through gritted teeth. "Keep going. You're dying." "I'm evolving." Dante's eyes opened, and they were no longer just gold-green. They were luminescent, otherworldly, carrying depths that looked like genetic code made visible. "I can feel it. The destabilization. It's not killing me. It's making me into exactly what we need." The laboratory door burst open. Guards flooded in, weapons raised, but they stopped short when they saw Dante standing, the four lines still connected, his entire body seeming to pulse with barely contained energy. "Remarkable." The architect's voice came from behind the guards. He stepped through, his expression one of scientific fascination rather than anger. "You've accelerated the destabilization process. I didn't think that was possible." He moved closer, studying Dante like a prize specimen. "You're beautiful." A living contradiction, enhanced and anti-enhanced simultaneously. The perfect weapon and the perfect defense, all in one package. "Step back," Silvio warned, gun trained on the architect. The architect laughed. "Bullets don't work on me, remember?" He reached out toward Dante. "Let me examine." The moment his skin made contact with Dante's, the architect screamed. It wasn't pain. It was worse. It was the sound of someone feeling their carefully constructed immortality crumbling, cell by cell, enhancement by enhancement. The architect stumbled backward, staring at his hand where it had touched Dante. The skin was blistering, necrotizing, the enhanced tissue dying rapidly. "What did you do?" The architect's voice carried the first hint of fear Serafina had ever heard from him. Dante smiled, and it was terrible and beautiful and absolutely final. "I became exactly what your wife created me to be." He took a step forward, and the architect retreated. "Your destruction." Through their bond, Serafina felt Dante's triumph, his pain, his absolute certainty that this was the moment everything changed. The question was whether they'd survive what came next. The architect's compound descended into chaos within minutes. Every enhanced guard who came near Dante began experiencing the same catastrophic failure, their genetic modifications unraveling, their engineered immunity becoming their executioner. Bodies fell like broken puppets, victims of their own weaponized biology turning against them. The entire facility, the architect gasped, clutching his deteriorating hand. "You've contaminated the entire facility with your presence." "Good." Dante's voice carried an otherworldly resonance now, as if speaking with multiple frequencies simultaneously. Through their bond, Serafina felt him burning, not dying, but transforming into something that existed on the knife's edge between human and living biological weapon. "Where's Dr. Kozlov's daughter? Where's Silvio's sister's body? You think you've won?" The architect laughed, the sound wet and desperate. "You're killing yourself. That much destabilization in your system, you'll be dead within hours. Days at most. Then I'll make sure you die first." Dante lunged forward. The architect moved with desperate speed, his deteriorating enhancements still enough to give him an edge. He slammed a button on the wall, and steel barriers dropped throughout the laboratory, separating Dante from Serafina, Silvio from the exit. "Genetic kill switch," the architect snarled. "If I'm dying, we're all dying." He pulled out a tablet, fingers flying across the screen despite the necrosis spreading up his arm. Every enhanced individual in this facility has a failsafe in their modifications. Including you, Mr. Grimmoney. I can trigger cascade failure in all of them simultaneously. Do it, Dante said calmly. Kill everyone you've experimented on. Prove what a monster you really are. The architect's finger hovered over the screen. Then his eyes shifted to Serafina, trapped behind the steel barrier. Or, we make a deal. I let everyone live. I release the girl. I destroy all my research. And you give me one thing, granddaughter. What? Serafina's voice was steady despite her thundering heart. A cure. For what you've made him into. The architect gestured to Dante. You have the genetic knowledge. The understanding. You could stabilize him, remove the destabilization effect. Make him merely enhanced instead of catastrophically toxic. His dying hand trembled. Save him, and I'll let everyone go. Through their bond, Serafina felt Dante's response before he spoke it. Don't. Whatever he's offering, it's a lie. But she could also feel something else, Dante's system beginning to fail. The transfusion had worked too well. He was becoming so concentrated with destabilizing genetics that his own body couldn't sustain itself. He was a bomb with a lit fuse, and the explosion would kill him along with everyone else. How do I know you'll keep your word? Serafina asked. You don't. The architect smiled through his pain. But you know what happens if you refuse. Dante dies. The hostages die. And I trigger every failsafe in this facility before my enhancements completely fail. 300 enhanced individuals, all dying in synchronized agony. He leaned against the wall, his strength visibly failing. Your grandmother taught me that the sweetest poison looks like love. So here's my offer, save the man you love, and I'll take my poison with grace. Serafina's mind raced through possibilities. Every formula her grandmother had encoded, every compound, every trick. There was a way to stabilize Dante. She could feel the knowledge crystallizing in her genetic memory. But doing so would remove the one weapon they had against the architect. Unless. I'll need access to the laboratory equipment, Serafina said. And I'll need Dante's blood samples from before the transfusion. The baseline genetics. The architect studied her suspiciously, then nodded. The steel barrier between them rose slowly. Serafina moved to the equipment, her hands steady despite the stakes. Through their bond, she sent Dante a message in the only language they truly shared, the pulse of their synchronized heartbeats, the rhythm of genetic recognition, the code her grandmother had written into both their cells. Trust me. I'm not saving him. I'm finishing what Nana started. Dante's eyes widened fractionally, understanding blooming. He nodded once, imperceptibly. Serafina worked quickly, synthesizing a compound that looked like a stabilizing agent. In reality, she was creating something far more elegant, a genetic catalyst that would accelerate the destabilization in Dante's system, concentrate it, then allow him to transfer it through direct contact. Not a cure. A detonator. Done, she said, holding up the syringe. This will stabilize the destabilization effect, make it controllable instead of catastrophic. Dante will still carry the anti-enhancement properties, but they won't kill him. The architect's face showed desperate hope. Administer it. Serafina moved to Dante, their eyes meeting. In that moment, everything her grandmother had tried to teach her crystallized into perfect clarity. The sweetest poison is always the one that looks like love. And mercy is the cruelest poison of all. She injected the compound into Dante's arm. His body convulsed once, violently. Then his eyes cleared, the luminescence fading to something more human but infinitely more dangerous. Through their bond, Serafina felt it, the destabilization hadn't been neutralized. It had been weaponized. Concentrated. Made transferable. Dante was now a loaded gun, and all he needed to do was touch the architect to pull the trigger. "It's done," Serafina said. "Now release the hostages." The architect's deteriorating fingers worked the tablet. "The girl is in room 304. The guards are unlocking it now. My research files are being deleted as we speak." He looked at Serafina with something almost like respect. "Your grandmother would be proud. You chose love over revenge." "Did I?" Serafina's smile was her grandmother's smile, gentle, devastating, and absolutely final. Dante moved before the architect could process the words. His hand clamped around the old man's throat, and through their bond, Serafina felt the transfer, concentrated destabilization flooding into the architect's system like a genetic tsunami. The architect's scream lasted 3 seconds before his enhanced vocal cords failed. His body seized, every modification he'd made to himself over 20 years unraveling simultaneously. Enhanced muscle tissue necrotized. Reinforced bones became brittle as glass. His immune system, engineered to be invincible, became his executioner. "You said." He gasped, "You stabilized." "She stabilized me," Dante said softly, his grip never loosening. "Made it so I wouldn't die from carrying too much destabilization. But she also made it so I could deliver all of it, concentrated, directly into you." He leaned closer. "This is for Margarita. For every child you experimented on. For every life you destroyed in pursuit of playing God." The architect's eyes found Serafina's one last time. "You're just like her." "I know," Serafina whispered. "And I'm not sorry." The architect's body went limp. His enhancements failed catastrophically, and within 30 seconds, there was nothing left but an old man who died from the same hubris that had driven him for decades. Dante released the corpse, staggering slightly. Serafina caught him, and through their bond, she felt his exhaustion, his pain, his profound relief. "Is it over?" Dante asked. "Almost." Silvio's voice came from the doorway. He held Elena in his arms, the girl awake but groggy. Behind him, Alara followed, her face streaked with tears of relief. "The guards are either dead or fleeing." The facility's self-destruct protocol was initiated when the architect's heart stopped, but I've disabled it. We have maybe 10 minutes before authorities arrive. Then we leave. Vittoria's voice surprised them all. The elegant woman emerged from the shadows, her cream pantsuit now splattered with blood that definitely wasn't hers. "I've secured our exit route. Unless you'd prefer to explain to Italian authorities why a Michelin star chef just helped kill a geneticist in his own illegal laboratory?" Serafina looked at Dante, at the gold-green eyes they now shared, at the bond that tied them together in ways neither fully understood yet. "What happens now?" Dante's smile was tired but genuine. "Now you go back to your restaurant. Create food instead of poison. Live the life your grandmother wanted for you." "And you?" "I'm genetically bonded to you for life, Bellissima. I'm not going anywhere." He pulled her closer, and their synchronized heartbeats felt like a promise. "Besides, I've always wanted to learn how to cook." Through their bond, Serafina felt his truth, that he'd walk through fire to stay by her side, that the genetic connection was simply permission to follow what his heart already knew. "We should go," Silvio said urgently. Now, as they fled through the monastery crypts toward freedom, Serafina felt her grandmother's presence one final time in her genetic memory, not words, but a feeling. Pride, relief, love, and the certain knowledge that some poisons were necessary. Some weapons were protection. Some deaths were the only path to life. They emerged into the Tuscan dawn, and for the first time in days, Serafina could breathe. 3 weeks of peace felt like a lifetime and a blink simultaneously. Serafina stood in her restaurant kitchen at midnight, the familiar weight of a chef's knife in her hand as she prepped for tomorrow's service. Osteria dell'Angelo had reopened to critical acclaim, her brief closure attributed to family emergencies that the media never questioned. Her Michelin star gleamed. Her dining room stayed booked months in advance. Everything appeared perfect. Dante emerged from the wine cellar, 2 bottles of Barolo in hand, his gold-green eyes, so like hers now, reflecting the kitchen's ambient light. Their genetic bond hummed contentedly between them, a constant awareness of each other's presence that had evolved from necessity into something far more intimate. "You're thinking too loud," he murmured, setting the bottles down and moving behind her, his hands settling on her waist. "I can feel your anxiety through the bond." "Just tired." Serafina leaned back against his chest, letting his warmth seep into her bones. 3 weeks of playing normal is exhausting when you know what's actually encoded in your DNA. We destroyed his research. His facility. His entire operation. Dante's voice carried certainty, but Serafina felt the thread of doubt beneath it through their connection. "It's over." The kitchen's back door opened silently, so silently that neither of them heard it until a woman's voice cut through their moment like a scalpel through skin. "Is it, though?" Serafina spun, knife raised instinctively. The woman standing in the doorway wore an elegant black dress and carried herself with the kind of predatory grace that made apex predators look clumsy. Her hair was dark, swept into a chignon that emphasized cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass. And her eyes, gold-green, identical to Serafina's, identical to what her grandmother's had been, held an intelligence that felt ancient and absolutely merciless. "Who the hell are you?" Dante moved in front of Serafina protectively, and she felt his system activating, preparing to release the destabilization effect that made him lethal to enhanced individuals. "Careful, Mr. Grimmoney." The woman raised one elegant hand. "Your little genetic weapon won't work on me. I've been inoculated against it since before Serafina was born." She smiled, and it was Serafina's grandmother's smile, beautiful, devastating, wrong. "Then again, I suppose I would know. I'm the one who created the countermeasure." Serafina's blood turned to ice. "That's impossible. The architect is dead. His research destroyed. The architect was a puppet." The woman stepped fully into the kitchen, and 3 more figures materialized behind her, enhanced soldiers, their movements too fluid to be fully human. A very useful, very public puppet who drew all attention while the real work continued in the shadows. "Who are you?" Serafina's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Caterina Rossetti." The woman's smile widened. "Your grandmother's twin sister. The one she never told you about. The one she experimented on first, before she perfected her techniques on your mother, before she created you." She moved closer, and Serafina could smell her perfume, something expensive with undertones of formaldehyde and burnt sugar. "The one who's been waiting 23 years for you to lead me to everything Margarita stole." "My grandmother didn't have a twin." "Didn't she?" Caterina pulled out her phone, displaying an old photograph, 2 identical teenage girls with gold-green eyes, standing against a Naples backdrop. We were inseparable. Until she decided the architect's vision was too dangerous. Until she poisoned him, or tried to, and fled with his research. Her expression hardened. And with something far more valuable, the genetic memory she'd been encoding. The one that's currently living inside you. Dante's hand found Serafina's, their bond pulsing with shared alarm. What do you want? What every visionary wants, to finish what was started. Caterina gestured, and her soldiers spread out, blocking every exit. The architect built an army. I perfected it. 300 enhanced individuals across 12 countries, all waiting for the final component that will make them truly unstoppable. She looked at Serafina with hunger that felt like violence. Every formula Margarita encoded in you. Every compound. Every secret. I need them. And you're going to give them to me. I'll die first, Serafina said. No, darling. He'll die first. Caterina nodded toward Dante. That genetic bond my sister created between you? I can sever it. Quite painfully. His enhanced immune system would devour him from the inside out over approximately 48 hours of exquisite agony. And you'd feel every second through your connection. She tilted her head. Or you cooperate, and he lives. Simple mathematics. Through their bond, Serafina felt Dante's response, defiance, determination, the absolute certainty that he'd rather die than let her become a weapon for this monster. But she also felt something else. A stirring in her genetic memory, activated by Caterina's proximity. A final message from her grandmother, one she'd never accessed before. One that made her blood run cold. Piccola, if you're hearing this, then Caterina has found you. And you need to know the truth, I'm not the original. She is. The architect cloned me from her DNA when she refused to cooperate with his experiments. Everything I gave you, every formula, every enhancement, every weapon encoded in your cells, I stole from her first. You're not my legacy, darling. You're hers. The genetic memory has been calling her home since the moment you were born. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The revelation hit Serafina like a physical blow. Everything her grandmother had told her was a lie. The woman she'd trusted, who'd raised her, who'd turned her into a living weapon, she was a copy. An imposter. And the real monster had been waiting in the shadows all along. I can see you've accessed the final memory, Caterina said softly, reading Serafina's expression with practiced ease. Good. Then you understand. Everything you are, everything you can do, it came from me originally. Margarita was brilliant, but she was also sentimental. She corrupted my work with things like conscience and mercy. Her smile was gentle, terrible. I won't make that mistake. Dante lunged for Caterina, but her soldiers moved with inhuman speed. Within seconds, he was restrained, a syringe pressed against his neck filled with something that glowed faintly blue. Genetic poison, Caterina explained conversationally. Specifically designed to target the bond between you two. 1 dose, and Mr. Grimani begins dying. Slowly. Painfully. Inevitably. She looked at Serafina. Unless you come with me right now. Work with me. Give me access to everything encoded in your DNA. Serafina, Dante's protest was cut off as one of the soldiers pressed the needle deeper, a single drop of blue liquid entering his bloodstream. Through their bond, Serafina felt it immediately, burning, spreading, corrupting. The genetic connection that kept Dante alive beginning to fray at the edges. You have 30 seconds to decide, Katerina said. Come willingly and work with me to save him. Or refuse, and watch him die over the next 48 hours, feeling every moment of his agony through your bond. Serafina looked at Dante, at the man who'd become her partner, her anchor, the one person who understood what it meant to be a weapon and a person simultaneously. His gold-green eyes held hers, and through their bond, she felt his message clearly. Run. Let me die. Don't become what she wants. But Serafina had never been good at following instructions. I'll come, she said. But you give him the antidote first. Katerina's smile was triumphant. Of course. I'm not unreasonable. She produced another syringe, this one filled with clear liquid, and personally administered it to Dante. There. The poison is neutralized. Your bond is safe. And now, she gestured to her soldiers, who moved towards Serafina. Wait. Serafina's mind raced through everything her grandmother, or the woman she'd thought was her grandmother, had taught her. Every formula. Every compound. Every trick. If you want my cooperation, I need to know one thing first. What? My grandmother, your clone, she encoded a failsafe in my genetics. A way to destabilize enhancements. That's what made Dante into a weapon against the architect. Serafina watched Katerina's expression carefully. But if you created the original work, then you know about it. You've had decades to develop countermeasures. So why do you need me? You could just extract my genetic material, analyze it, replicate it. Katerina's smile faltered for the first time. Because Margarita was more clever than I gave her credit for. The encoding she used, it's locked to your active consciousness. Your genetic memory only reveals its secrets when you're alive, aware, and willing to access them. The moment you die or lose consciousness, the information degrades beyond recovery. She moved closer, and her eyes held something that might have been respect. She turned you into a living key that destroys itself if forced. The only way to access what you carry is if you voluntarily open those genetic doors. So I'm not just a weapon, Serafina said slowly. I'm the only copy of a book that burns itself if anyone tries to steal it. Exactly. Which means you and I are going to become very close, dear niece. You'll teach me everything. Willingly. Patiently. And in exchange, I'll let your bonded partner live, let your little restaurant continue, let everyone you love stay safe. Katerina's expression hardened. Or you resist, and I'll start eliminating everyone you care about, one by one, until grief makes you pliable. Serafina felt Dante straining against his captors through their bond, felt his rage and helplessness and desperate love. She also felt something else, a presence in her genetic memory, awakening now that Katerina was close. Not her grandmother's voice. Something older. Darker. Something that predated both Rossetti twins, that went back generations to women who'd poisoned kings and toppled empires and understood that survival sometimes meant becoming the monster everyone feared. All right, Serafina said quietly. I'll cooperate. But I want guarantees. Contracts. Blood oaths if necessary. Of course. Katerina's smile returned. I'm a professional, after all. We'll negotiate terms. You'll have protections. This will be a partnership, not a prison. Serafina let them take her by the arm, let them lead her toward the door. Through the bond, she sent Dante one final message, not words, but a feeling. A promise. I'm not surrendering. I'm infiltrating. Trust me. But even as she sent it, Serafina felt the genetic memory stirring with dark knowledge, and she wondered. When she finally accessed the deepest secrets encoded in her DNA, would she still be the woman Dante loved? Or would she become exactly what Caterina wanted, a willing weapon, a perfect killer, the culmination of generations of Rossetti women who'd learned that the sweetest poison always looked like love? As the door closed behind her, separating her from Dante and everything she'd built, Serafina heard Caterina's whispered promise like a death sentence. "Welcome to the family business, darling. Now let's discover what you're truly capable of." Will Serafina become the monster Caterina wants, or can Dante save her before it's too late? Drop your predictions below. Bell subscribe so you don't miss part 2 dropping soon. You won't want to miss what happens next. Hit that notification bell and let us know in the comments what you think Serafina will do.